these beautiful feelings of just, energy coming through me. I remember sitting in meditations 2 or 3 weeks into my practice and sitting in stillness and just feeling this rush of love come over me, feeling my fingers just tingle and just literally connecting to the energetic vibration. This is metaphysics, but it's also quantum physics. It's just, we are all just energy. And when we're thinking in a fear-based way, we are energetically in a fear-based way, and we are blocking the flow of energy. And so when I would still my mind, I would still my energetic state, I could then connect to the divine energy around me. And so this was not something I actually understood much like I do. I can explain it now. At the time I was like, I don't know what this is, but it is groovy. And it worked. It worked. It calmed me. It was incredible. But there was no way in hell that I could go back to school and say, hey guys, I meditated last night and my extremities were tingling and I felt really great. Wasn't going to happen. I would have been exiled from high school. So I kept this to myself. This was my thing. I kept it to myself, and I was like, okay, there's this connection, and it's there, and I also started to experience strong synchronicity in my life. Started to experience strong intuition. My intuition would guide me, and I would know who was calling on the phone. I would experience feelings of needing to do something and then doing it and being like, oh yeah, I understand now why I did that. Right? So it was really being able to connect to my inner guide. And then by the time this became something that was sort of like normal for me, I did what most high school students do, and I said, okay, that worked for a little while, and I'm gonna pick up some other things that might be helpful to anesthetize my fear. And so I like most young ladies in high school may do, I turned to parties, and I turned to boyfriends, I turned to external things to feel as though I was good enough, to feel as though I was in a community, to feel as though I was not an outsider. And so I turned to the drugs, I turned to the party, I turned to the boyfriends to anesthetize that pain. And this just began a very negative spiral. I remember one night I had a little after-hours party at my after-hours. My mom was out of town, my brother and I were home. And I threw a little party with 40 of our closest friends. And I remember I was, doing some bad things. And my mom, I called my mom the next day and I said, Mom, I did some drugs, or I did something, and I drank some beer, and I was so freaked out. This was the most horrifying experience. I can't even imagine. My mom says, I know. I was like, okay, what do you mean you know? How do you know what I experienced last night? What's going on? And she said, well, I went to an astrological reader yesterday. And the astrologer said that Gabrielle, when it got to the point of me in the readings, that Gabrielle is a very wide open person. She's energetically open, and she should never do drugs and alcohol. Drugs and alcohol will take her to places that will not serve her, and she can get to those places that she wants to get to on her own. But she should never use drugs or alcohol. And so I took this message and I tucked it away, and I was like, great, now I'm a freak even more, right? And so I took this message and I was like, screw that, I'm moving forward. And so for the next 6 to 8 years, I was on a very, very massive journey to, like I said, anesthetize that pain and feel as though I was good enough and prove myself to the world. And I took all those limiting beliefs that I picked up as a young woman, which were, I'm not good enough unless I'm successful on the outside. That was a big one for me. Another big one was, I'm not good enough, I'm incomplete without a boyfriend or a romantic partner. I felt like that was a big thing I had to have to feel complete. And I walked around with these limiting beliefs throughout my high school and college experience, and really acted out and really got myself into some very funky corners, because I needed to feel as though I was successful to be good enough. I started my first business at 21, and I had on the outside all the trappings of what would look like a happy, successful young woman. But on the inside, I was emotionally and spiritually bankrupt. And I was constantly manipulating and controlling and clutching and holding on to every corner of my life. And I had such a difficult time dealing with all of these different circumstances. I was the most controlling person on the planet. I wanted to control my business partner, and I wanted to control the relationships, and I wanted to control every detail. And when that didn't work, and the boyfriends didn't work anymore, and the credentials didn't work anymore, I turned to much darker ways of dealing with my experience. I turned to drugs, I turned to alcohol, I turned to the New York City party scene, and I really spun out hard.